Let's go, Rider Nation.
I'm ready. I'm ready. Yeah, here we go. It's a feeling now. Hit 'em high, hit 'em low, 'cause we're dealing now. Everybody's giving it all they got, 'cause we're ready.
Welcome to the Piffles podcast, your Saskatchewan Roughriders fan podcast. Thanks for joining us here this week. You got me. I'm Alex.
I'm Steve.
And like Justin Goltz, I like my ties.
Wow. That's
I'm out.
You know what? Bomber fans are so triggered by us right now in our power rankings. They'll actually appreciate that. So
Hey,
we'll
I'm
put that out of
I'm
the
trying
way
to
right
reach across the aisle. I could have mentioned how he got blown out at the Labor Day, but no, I'm trying to
Don't
reach
do
across the aisle.
No, definitely talk about how he sucked on Labor Day and how the Riders kicked the crap out of him.
Always a delightful thought.
Well, your Saskatchewan Roughriders fan podcast talking about ties. I hate ties so much, you guys. I'm still not over last weekend. We'll talk about that.
Last weekend, it was Thursday. It's like it's almost been a full week since the game happened.
Yeah, it's Tuesday night right now as we record this, and I'm still angry about things. But we haven't heard from Steve, so Steve gets to throw his opinion there. Greg, you and I went live after the game, so we kind of said part of our piece and said we'd leave the rest for today, but I guess the rest is Steve. So give us a follow on X.
And that's where everybody tunes out.
Yes.
Steve, we're out.
We are at Piffles Pod. You can give me a follow at Real Alex D.
You can block me at Safamod.
And as always, I do not need nor want your pity follows at Greg on Sports.
And if you don't like the Riders and you hate Rider fans, why are you commenting on our stuff? I don't get it. Edmonton Elks fans, Calgary Stampeders fans, they're so upset that we had the Riders in second place in the power rankings.
Yep.
They're so mad.
Where they belong to be.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what the rankings say, which you can find at pifflespodcast.com.
And the CFL justified it by putting the Riders second as well. So,
yes, the CFL and head office never gets anything wrong.
Nothing wrong.
This is not the week.
Head office
gets
everything
use
right.
them as a credit.
It's Command Center that gets everything wrong. Piffles Podcast brought to you by Dairy Queen on Elphinstone Street and Sass Drive in Regina. Thanks for listening wherever you get your podcasts, watching on YouTube or SaskTel Max TV on demand. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right, let's get this Justin Goltz talk out of the way. Let's do the opening kickoff. I was expecting Greg to come back with the little necktie thing one more time.
Oh, stupid celebration. That was such a dumb celebration.
Oh, that was his thing, though. That's what he did.
Own it, I guess.
He didn't do it very often because he
did not.
Awful. All right. Riders, Redblacks last week tying 22-22 in a game where both teams won and then subsequently did not win. Riders 5-3-1. The nice thing is the point gets them higher up in the standings. Another week in first place. Baby. Yep. And honestly, it's not the worst thing. As much as I hate ties, it's not the worst thing because that 1 point could mean the difference between a home playoff game or first and second or a road playoff game. With how tight the West is probably going to end up being, that's a big point. And going into that game, I kind of expected us to lose. So to come away with that is not a bad thing. So,
and it realistically eliminates any worry about your record against another team. There's
tiebreaker.
Yeah, there's going to be no tiebreakers this year. So there's that.
Yeah. Well, Steve, we haven't heard your piece on this, and you wrote about it. The Command Center. Greg and I talked. We did a live show, which you can still find on YouTube and download it. Command Center, obviously interjecting when they should have, Anyway, I think it was complete BS. The whole overtime was BS. I'll say it again. I don't think that was pass interference against the Riders. It was close, but when you have to slow it down frame by frame, against Ottawa, the Riders got lucky on that one, honestly, in my mind. But that last play, that roughing the passer on Jacoby McLean when he got blocked into the quarterback, asinine that they would absolutely call that. Just letter of the law, sure. Yeah, okay. Technically, because he did hit him low, even by accident, it's a penalty. But use common sense. Anyway, I said I would give Steve the floor. I ended up taking the floor here. Steve, we haven't heard from you on this. What is your take on how that double overtime finished?
Here's my problem with it, and I mentioned it in the article. I don't have an issue with either of the calls that were made. I think it was pass interference by the letter of the law, and it was roughing the passer, again, if you're going word for word on how the rules are. My issue with it is entirely about how, when, and where the command center decides they're going to interject themselves. We see it time and time again where they will call a roughing the passer from upstairs, like last week against Edmonton when Patterson had his helmet brushed, and they called it up from down, or called it down from upstairs. Absurd use of that situation. It's the same thing here. And they don't do it for very blatant situations like the spot early in the fourth quarter that was a game-changing moment. Like, we're not talking about a quarter of a yard, a half a yard. We're talking a full yard and a half, and a first down deep in Ottawa territory that led to a turnover. It's this need for them to make themselves a part of the game that has become an issue. And we saw it. I listened to the Toronto-Calgary game the next day, and Mike Hogan was going off on the command center because they decided to review the fumble that happened. Again, by the rule, they called it correctly, but it's how and when they're piping in, and we never know anymore if they're going to do it. And I don't understand it. I hate it, and it's ruining the flow of the game. And it ruined the ending of what was already a terribly ended football game by making it somehow even worse. Like, there were people that turned their TVs off, went, go cracked a beer, sat down, celebrated a victory, and woke up the next morning.
Locker room.
They had to go get Dustin Crum back.
The quarterback that got roughed was in the locker room. I don't think he had any concern that he was roughed on that play. He figured game over. But the problem comes down to one specific moment that has nothing to do with overtime. How the hell do you give up a field goal with 32 seconds left, or when you're up 32 seconds left, and Dustin Crum is at quarterback? I could rage about pretty much every moment from the end of that game through overtime. We could spend an hour on this. You guys did a great job of wrapping it up afterwards. I was in no condition to comment. It would have not been. There would have been a parental advisory on that episode for sure.
If there ever was a game for a ridiculous ending like this, like we saw in Ottawa, that was probably the game to have it in, because that game sucked. That was one of the worst football games that I've seen in a long, long time, at least up here in the CFL. That was a horrendous game.
Like I said on X, that game did not deserve bonus football. that game deserved giving everyone a coupon for half off appetizers on the next visit. That was such a bad game.
But the funny thing about it was there was a lot of good for the Riders to talk about, and that's what I want to focus on. We can keep ripping the command center and whatnot till the cows come home. Do they still say that? Till the cows come home? That's still a saying. Now.
Well, where are the cows supposed to go?
I don't know.
Well,
tell them to move. I don't know. Sorry, that was awful.
That was utterly terrible. Utterly terrible.
Yes.
Oh my god.
I'm gonna milk that joke for all it's worth. Shea Patterson. I mean, only having 3 points at the half, honestly, wasn't that bad. He was moving the ball. The overthrows that led to the interceptions were bad. The interception off Joe's hand was bad. That one, to me, not on Patterson, but I think he was trying to make up for not moving around by throwing it harder or deeper than he should have. But at the end of the first half, he put that drive together. In the second half, moved the ball pretty well for the most part, and when he needed to. So I know you guys have talked about his regression over these 6 games that he had with Trevor Harris hurt, but I think he's done enough, and I do agree that he has regressed, but I think he's done enough to cement himself as a very capable CFL backup. And depending on what the Riders do with quarterbacks and what other teams do with quarterbacks next year, and we'll talk about that coming up.
I have things I need to say, but yes.
Patterson at least has earned the opportunity to come in and challenge for the number 1 spot next year. That this is assuming the Riders move on from Trevor Harris, because he'll be 39 next year. And if they go with young guys, then Patterson at least has earned that opportunity to come back and challenge for a number 1 spot. At least that's what I think. From what I've seen over these 6 games from Patterson, he has something there. Still work to be done for sure, and I'm sure he'll be the first person to say that. But I like what I saw, and I'm very happy. I'm much more comfortable with him as our backup than Jake Dolegala, which we saw in BC was not very good, and definitely more than Mason Fine.
Patterson is definitely hot and cold. There's times where he shows absolute flashes of okay, this guy's getting it. And then you see where, oh yeah, this guy's still only 6 games into his CFL career. I'm not calling him Nick Arbuckle, who seems to be playing somewhat decently in Toronto right now, but I'm also not saying he's Drew Brown either. Like, he's somewhere in between. He's got the potential. He's got the skills. He just needs to be able to put 4 quarters together to really show what he can do.
I think he's definitely earned himself a spot. I don't disagree with that at all. He's not the guy that's going to light it up. He's not going to be your clear number 1 coming out of the gate tomorrow or next season. But I absolutely think he's at least earned a roster spot and a shot to fight for that spot, pending all of the potential quarterback carouseling that happens in the offseason. I liked what I saw. There is a ton of potential there. He's got a good arm. He is mobile, even if he decides not to use it anymore. Like, you can tell he has the potential to run, but he's just stopped running. And that's becoming an issue that needs to change. But overall, I'm happy with his progression as we continue into the season.
Now, also, kind of in Shea Patterson's defense over these last few games, that injury list just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. When you're missing your starting linebacker, or sorry, your starting running back, when you're down to your 4th right tackle, when you're down, a couple guards as well too, and you're on your 3rd left guard, receivers haven't helped him out a bit. You're missing your number 1 receiver in Kean Schaefer-Baker. Like, when you add all that in, I think he deserves a little bit of leeway on that, and you can't really hold a lot of that against him. Yes, some interceptions were pretty bad, and that has nothing to do with injuries, but as long as he's learning, I'm willing to accept, like the growing pains. And I think, generally speaking, for the most part, he has learned a lot in these 6 games, and I feel a lot better if should something happen to Trevor Harris again this year, at least we know that we have a very capable backup there now. So, but also this game, Dante Myers exploding on the scene. We were very happy with him in the preseason, having some really good games, and went over 100 yards, made that huge catch in the 4th quarter down the sidelines on the go route. There's some really good depth here at receiver, even if the receivers have had their drops and whatnot lately.
When you look at between him and Keyshawn Johnson, add in Sean Banger, the fact that we can bench Jared Stearns, the guy that we thought would be lighting it up after last season, that's telling you everything. We're seeing exactly what we saw out of Dante Myers in preseason with the regular season lights coming on. I love it.
Well, between him and Keyshawn Johnson, there was talk in the preseason of, well, maybe they let Stearns go because they can't keep everyone. They found a way to keep everyone. Unfortunately, you got to bury some of these guys on the practice roster. So, no, I wasn't surprised with anything Dante Myers did. He's shown real flashes in the preseason that actually made you think he was going to make the opening day roster.
Sean Bain Jr. I thought had a really solid game, except the 2-point convert in OT, which I think it got tipped just a bit, but still it wasn't an easy catch, but something that if you're going to be, the team's number one, I would expect you to come down with. But it was a nice bounce back game because he was pretty bad the week before against Edmonton. So nice bounce back game for Sean Bain. And the what can we say about the defense? With the injuries on the D line, they ended up getting 5 sacks. Caleb Sanders, Roland Milligan, Micah Johnson, all just phenomenal games.
Well, like Sanders and Brown and that defense kept them in the game in that first half. It was very easy for Ottawa to get an early lead there. Yes, by field goals, but the defense held them in. There's a reason why I thought it was a good chance we were going 0-0 into that half.
Steve's just nodding in approval.
Yep. What else can we say about the defense at this point? They've decided to extend the amazing defensive line play right through to the field goal unit.
Yeah, blocking. When was the last time we've seen 2 blocked field goals by the same team in the same game? Like, that was unreal. Caleb Sanders, Miles Brown.
Toronto the Grey Cup?
Oh, yeah, I guess that would have been the last time, right?
Best Grey Cup ever that wasn't a Riders win.
Yeah, screw the Bombers. Anytime we can take that shot, we'll do it. But even then, like, the linebackers, I thought played pretty well, and that was without Jameer Thurman. It was a big rotation of players on defense, and it was just kind of a war of attrition. If you could stay healthy, you're staying on the field. So short week, only really having 1.5 practices. I thought that the effort was there. It was a vast difference of effort than we saw against Edmonton the week before. So when things are kind of looking up against the wall for the Riders, they're showing that they're going to fight. They're at least going to put in a very serious effort to do everything they can, and that's something that I think we can all be proud of.
Well, they didn't get the victory, and I hate moral victory, but it was a character victory. Like, it was terrible weather. They were down a bunch of players, and they kept on trading punches with Ottawa in a game most people expected them to lose. They were odds-on favorites to lose. The trip to Ottawa is never good on a short week, and they found a way to stay in the game. And bar some really ridiculous calls from the command center, they probably should have won.
And if we can bounce back to Shea Patterson talking about moral victories, how about that clutch drive down 4 with 2 minutes to go, marching down the field to score a touchdown? That was the moment, I think, for me that he became the QB1 for now. Obviously, Harris coming back, that changes things. But I think that was that moment. You see that some guys have it, some guys don't in that moment. And we've seen it time and again from this team. They've got it in that moment.
Shea Patterson, one tough SOB, because he's been getting hit hard late too, not getting called against any other quarterback. I almost guarantee you that's a penalty. Against one out in Hamilton and one in Winnipeg for sure. They're definitely calling those penalties. They're not doing it for Shea Patterson.
The lemonade salesman?
Yeah, something like that.
Oh, okay.
That was absolutely hilarious. Bo Levi Mitchell, when you lose your job, so your kids help you out, and it's his 2 daughters putting up a lemonade stand.
Pissy Bo Levi Mitchell is my favorite Bo Levi Mitchell. And yes, he's whiny, but that picture was cute as hell.
Yeah, it was.
But still, what a tire fire Hamilton is becoming to be. We oh my God, thank God Scott Milanovic pulled himself out of the consideration.
We dodged a bullet.
Thank God.
We really did.
Yep.
Because his coaching staff sucks over there. Like, they're just getting badly out coached. They're getting badly outplayed. Their defense is awful. And I'm glad that's not our problem. One more thing on the good side for the Riders was a nice bounce back week for Brett Lothar. We called him. I don't want to say we called him out last week, but we
absolutely called him out.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Would you guys call it that? Just saying that we need
Yes.
competition to push them.
Oh, well, yeah.
None of us
And believe me, for a
think
guy
he's
like Brett
awful or
Lothar, that's calling him out. Like,
All right, fair.
he thinks he should have this job for as long as he wants, and he's probably not wrong. But there's points where he needs to be pushed, and without a Ryan Mescal or anyone else on that roster, sometimes he needs to be reminded that, hey, buddy, you're replaceable.
So a nice bounce back game for Brett Lothar. Had clutch kicks too, not just a down and distance kind of thing. The timing of them, they were clutch. I was disappointed in the run game though. The fact that we got basically nothing going with Frankie Hickson, especially in the rain. I thought we'd show a lot better. Maybe that was offensive line blocking, just with Nick Jones struggling a little bit early, but I thought he settled in pretty okay. But I expected a little bit better out of that. And then
I don't know what to say about a running game this year. I expected a running game to be our strength this year, and it's by far means under par where I thought it would be. So hopefully, with both Hickson and AJ in the lineup this week, possibly we might see something that turns it around.
Injuries in that game, the main one that kind of sticks out. CJ Avery got hurt in that one. Probably won't play this upcoming week. Baldonado got KTFO'd.
You could see the birds flying around his head.
Yeah, he was
you could
out.
See
so he won't play this week, but some other bodies coming back, which is a good thing. But Riders tying the Redblacks 22-22, 5-3-1, still a pretty good record. And again, first place for another week, no matter what. So that's a good thing in my books.
I'm just saying, number one.
Oh, well,
I thought he was acknowledging Roman Reigns.
That would not be my style. I leave the wrestling remarks to you guys.
No. So you were acknowledging Solo Sikoa as your tribal chief?
Were those words that
I don't think he knows what you're talking about.
Bless you.
I want to talk ties, just in general, not this specific one, but ties. I hate ties. I think they're stupid in sports. I think we're past them. Is it time to get rid of? Yeah, I love Brian Burke. Should text him. Is it time to get rid of ties for good, like the NHL has, and just go to just a shootout style? And until you get a winner, you get a winner. I'm in favor of that because it just there's no room in sports for ties for me. I'd rather see a tie in baseball because there's 162 games. When there's only 18 games in a season, ties are just amplified that much more. And yeah, it might help out the Riders in the standings, but I hate them. And I wish they would just keep doing a shootout until somebody doesn't win.
There's one really easy way to get rid of ties in the CFL. Wait for Ottawa to fold again. They seem to be the only team that does it every damn time.
Fourth time's a charm.
I'm with you though. I absolutely hate ties. There's that old saying, ties like kissing your sister, right? Like there's no sports fan who enjoys watching two teams tie. And if they do, I question everything about them. Like, just do away with it. Overtime as it is without the command centers, jumping into it constantly is a lot of fun to watch. I would watch 6 of those mini games back and forth until you have a set winner. Do it. Give us a winner.
Here's the problem. And while you guys aren't wrong that ties are not the best thing in the world, I have to actually go on the side of player safety. If you're going to keep on running guys back and forth, that's fine in the playoffs where one team wins and one team loses and is done. It's another to have guys just keep on bashing their heads against each other for a period of time. And yes, the NHL got rid of it, but they switched to a skills competition after the overtime. So unless you want to solve
Play
this by
7-on-7 then.
so if you want to switch this to a coffin corner kick competition after the mini game, sure, let's have that conversation.
No, because every other kicker is absolutely kicking our ass in that right now. Ottawa was doing that. Edmonton did it twice.
Okay, fine. Onside, the 10-yard onside kick
There we
that Brett
go.
Leather.
Thank you.
We'll do that one. But the fact remains is the NHL, yes, got rid of ties, but it's not like they're playing 5-on-5 or
But
even
you're
4-on-4.
saying this like the CFL actually gives a damn about player safety.
I
We all know
understand
they
that as
don't.
well. I understand, but however, the CFLPA is going to have to be involved in this as well, and they care about player safety.
If
Peter
we're
Guy's
actually
out now.
if we're legitimately talking about player safety as a concern, how much of a difference is it when we see maybe two games go to overtime in a season, and how many of them have ended in a tie that would allow for more football?
I'm not saying like I said, I understand what you're saying, but the fact remains is every play there's a legit chance someone's going to get balled and autoed. So you have to be careful with that. It's one thing to be there, fine as is. Okay, imagine if Patterson got KO'd at in the second mini game or the fourth mini game. Why? There's no point.
Can say that about literally any play in the
I
game.
agree. I agree, but that's the game as it exists. At this point, you're just playing bonus football for no reason. Then get rid of let's just end the game in a tie. Don't even do the mini games. End of 40 minutes.
That's the exact opposite of what we want.
I understand that, but there's no point. Is my point. Like there's no point for the mini games then at all. Sure.
Yes, there is, to end a tie. That is
Exactly.
literally the point of the mini game.
But there's no sense keeping them going. Is my point.
Just start kicking. Have the field goal kickers kick from 25 yards, move them back 5 yards every time. First one to lose, well, you lost.
There you go. There's your shootout. But you can't keep on having mini games where you have guys just beating the crap out of each other, because it could go on forever, as proven by the way Ottawa and the Riders are playing, that game was going forever.
Just do one play from the 5 yard line. Everybody gets one play. You score, you score. You don't, you don't.
No offensive line, no defensive line, just
just skeleton. Yes, run Skelly. Ideas guys right here. We're ideas guys.
That's why they pay us the big bucks.
We'll take these to Randy Ambrosi next week in Toronto when we go to CFL head office, Steve.
I can't wait for him to put all of these into action.
I'm sure they'll take time to write them, every single one of them down.
And then crumple them up and throw them in the wastebasket.
Yeah. Are they gone yet? Some roster notes over the last week for the Riders. We didn't mention on last week's show because it happened after, but they did sign Albert Awachi, fullback, who ended up playing in this game. Yeah. Was cut from Toronto last couple days before that. Re-signed quickly with the Riders. Of course, he was here for a few years before. So that just goes to show where the depth of this team is right now. It's all on injured reserve. So, but a guy that
we don't talk about Bruno's injury for some reason.
That's right. But a guy that can come in and play specials. So that was obviously a good pickup, and I expect him to be on the roster for a while. This week, more depth pieces. Offensive lineman, is it Jean or Jean? I don't know. I didn't really look. Jean, we'll call him Jean. Hopefully I'm right. Jean Delance, offensive lineman.
It's pronounced Mark.
Another depth piece on offensive line, and they need it. And then a couple linebackers, American Aubrey Miller Jr., who he was the guy that got yelled at by Chris Jones in Edmonton. Well, it was actually in BC, but for the Edmonton Elks earlier this year, and just ignored Chris Jones and just kept walking on the sidelines, laughing away. And I don't know.
I like him already.
I'm perfectly fine with that.
Him and Jo probably have a lot to talk about.
Yeah. that would be a nice conversation to hear. Be a fly on the wall for that one. And another Canadian linebacker brought in Zach Fillion for depth piece as well. So
I really wish that Rod Black was still in the league so we could find out who his dad is
his dad Ed Fillion?
It definitely is.
Or is it? Something Steve Tasker. So some roster news for the Riders there, more depth pieces, but more importantly, and we'll talk about it in a little bit when we look at this game against Montreal, bodies coming back, which is important. But that's the opening kickoff presented by Kathy Festian of Royal LePage Regina Realty. Let's jump to our Churchill Brewing Company odds and end zones, where we're talking quarterbacks. Where do you want to start? Do you want to start out in BC or do you want to start in Toronto? You guys
Let's
choose.
get Toronto. Let's get Toronto out of the way.
Okay. Chad Kelly, who's probably
They were
going to start for Toronto next week against the Riders, which we've been saying all along was going to happen. The CFL announced that they are initiating a review on Chad Kelly, basically to see if they will reinstate him. So he served his 9-game suspension, and now it's basically just finding out if he did all the mandated therapy sessions and training sessions to basically not harass women, all that kind of stuff. Look, I know exactly we all know how it's going to go. This was the day that they should have announced it. If the CFL is just going to let him play, which I'm assuming that we're all on the same page with, he's going to. Whether we like it or not, it's a completely different discussion, but it's probably going to happen. Today, Tuesday, was the day to announce it. When
I said as much on Twitter.
They should have
today.
buried
I'm
it.
like, today is the day between the Rourke news and the Edmonton news we're going to talk about. Today was the day you just empty your clip of Chad Kelly news, and it would have been gone.
Yep.
But on the flip side, the league probably doesn't want all of the negative blowback that's going to come when they reinstate him on the same day they're celebrating the return of their golden boy. They want that news to stand all on its own. And honestly, I'm pretty sure that if they could have had the Edmonton news come out later, they would have done that as well. They wanted this to be the news story in Canadian sports.
It's a 5-minute meeting, Zoom meeting for the CFL. Hey guys, we're going to announce this now with we know about the Nathan Rourke stuff going. We're going to put out this Chad Kelly release. We're not going to have any further comment on it. And then everything social media, Nathan Rourke, Nathan Rourke, Nathan Rourke. Everything's great. Our savior for the league is back. And, oh yeah, by the way, Toronto can play Chad Kelly if they so choose. Bury it. Just absolutely bury it, and then make all your social and make everything about Nathan Rourke.
That's okay. It's going to come out Friday when Edmonton announces their new owner. And then the big story is going to be
Thursday.
About Thursday. Sorry.
Thursday now.
Yeah. And then it's going to get buried in another controversy that we're also probably going to be talking about shortly.
Yeah. So anyway, hopefully soon we can just get the whole Chad Kelly thing over and done with. And that actually does lead into the Nathan Rourke signing it back in BC for 3 years. Before we even talk terms about that, if I'm the Toronto Argonauts, even though I want to play Chad Kelly because they were 16-2 last year with him, he was the league's MOP, he's your number one guy, the PR nightmare that he is and always has been, if you can get rid of that and somehow still bring in a guy who's MOP worthy this year in Vernon Adams, who now is probably available, even though Rick Campbell's saying we're not looking at trading him. Well, until somebody comes up with an offer you can't refuse. Yeah, exactly.
Garbage.
Right? They may not be phoning other teams offering up Vernon Adams Jr., but they're accepting that call. They might even accept a collect call on that. And if you're Toronto, you absolutely inquire about him, because Nick Arbuckle is not the answer. Cameron Dukes, jury's still out on him, but if you can have him back up Vernon Adams Jr., who can come in and, I mean, once he's healthy, obviously, once that knee is good, come in and start right away and be your guy, you can just say, see you, Chad. Gone.
Here's the question.
salary. Eat the salary you have to on Chad Kelly. It's MLSE. They have the money. Just get it over and done with.
Here's the question with that. Let's say tomorrow that trade goes through and Chad Kelly is released. Is there a team in the CFL that signs him? Or is his CFL career done?
Immediately, no.
New ownership in
Eventually, yes.
Well,
I mean, given their ability to start a dumpster fire off hot, yeah, Edmonton does look like a good possibility.
does Chris Jones get the GM head coaching job next year? Because if he does, that changes my answer.
No, God, no.
Okay,
He gets
then
nowhere
no.
near the GM head coach. At best, he'll get a DC job in a year or two, and that'll be where his career ends.
No, right now, Chad Kelly is untouchable. Like you can't go near him if you're a team. It would be just the PR disaster that it is.
Meanwhile,
Unless
Toronto is going to absolutely advertise the crap out of him when he returns.
Well, if you have a very good PR team who has lawyers writing up exactly how you're going to answer questions, and you could probably get away with having Chad Kelly as your guy still. But if you're not putting in that resource with a PR team and lawyers, and you're just going to throw him up there in a scrum every single day and just let him say whatever he wants, that's not good. That said, I want to see Chad Kelly talk to everybody, not just Justin Dunk and Dave Naylor, who get invited to camp, to Argo practice, like what happened before, who are going to give them softball questions. Because Dave Naylor, obviously, CFL and TSN, isn't going to rock the boat. Justin Dunk, being the insider at the time, wasn't going to rock the boat. Doesn't want to do that because he talks to all these guys all the time. Doesn't want to piss him off. But now, I want to see, we've heard that there are female members of the CFL staff that absolutely hated what happened and are mad that Chad Kelly's still able to be in the league. I want to see them ask questions. Make Chad Kelly feel uncomfortable and sick and tired of answering questions about it, because he needs to answer it. And it should be everybody. It should not just be local reporters who are fed questions. He should be put on every single show across the country. He should be on this show answering our questions. We should bring on female fans, Rider fans. Let them ask the questions. Make him as uncomfortable as possible, because that's exactly what he did to other people. That's what should happen with him. I know it's never going to happen.
I was going to say, they're not going to put him in a situation.
That's what should happen. He should be held to the fire. At the very least, own what you did, you loser.
He's not.
Just own it.
I really wish you would sometimes more speak your mind on this show, and not try to hide behind the microphone. Alex.
Want me to just read our DM chat, because that's pretty much it.
I thought you pretty much did.
Yeah. Anyway, Nathan Rourke. Let's go back to the good stuff. I'm tired of Chad Kelly. We'll see him next week. Nathan Rourke. I'm actually just surprised that he showed up back in the CFL as soon as he did after being cut by the Atlanta Falcons. He was awful in his preseason game, 3 of 13, had one nice run, but generally had a very bad game. I'm surprised that he came back so soon and didn't wait till after the NFL preseason, just in case there were some injuries to quarterbacks, which now there's one in Minnesota. So that could have been a potential spot, but I'm surprised he came back.
I thought he was going to Scott Flory his way out of BC there for a second. But no, you're right. But at the same time,
I like it when you say
look
that.
at the. I know.
I like it when you say that.
I know. I heard that. But look at the amount of money BC threw at. Like, that is comparable to probably what he was making on the practice roster, and he gets to play, and he can actually build a bit of a film library again, because being out of the game for 2 straight years, you're at that point you're basing it on old tape and what you can do being stuck on a practice roster. Like he needs to build a buzz for himself again, like he did that first year as BC starter.
Honestly, after he only has 10 legitimate starts in the CFL. He was riding for 2 years off of one preseason game and realistically one preseason play down in the NFL. He got 2 years worth of looks or a year and a half's worth of looks based on that one play in Jackson. He now needs to take his $700,000 to $800,000 Canadian, which is absurd money in the CFL. It would be even worse if all of it counted against the cap, but I won't go there yet. But you're talking about $600,000 cap money to come up and actually play again. Of course he's going to sign. I'm pretty sure he had that thing faxed back to them before it was dry. It was an easy decision.
Been sitting there waiting the whole time.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like they were talking to him before he even signed in Atlanta, and Atlanta basically was his last gasp for this year. Is probably how we looked at it. But they did it smart. They're paying him prorated for the remainder of the year. Next year is basically all guaranteed, which means he ain't going to the NFL next year. He's not going to give it that look. You're going to get that full year, and then the following season, when it's not fully guaranteed, is when he can probably take a peek again if he has a decent season. If not, he's still got a giant contract in PC that he doesn't even have to worry about it. They could go 3-15 next year, and it won't matter to him. He's getting paid.
I don't know. That's not entirely true. He's got $6,000 in award incentives, Greg. That's the difference. That's going to make him play better. Why even put that in there on a $700,000 contract?
Just give him the $6,000.
Like, that's hilarious to me. Easy decision. Glad to have him back in the CFL. But can we just talk about a guy making $800,000 off of 10 games? I can't be the only one that hopes he comes back and absolutely tanks. It would be delightful.
Andrew Brandt would have him in the Sports Business Hall of Fame. Andrew Brandt, former CEO of or president of your Green Bay Packers, Steve. He has Kirk Cousins #1 in the Business Hall of Fame. Nathan Rourke's got to be in there for the Canadian Football League version.
What about Chase Daniels? He's got to be pretty high up there too.
Oh man, that guy is living the dream.
Blue Mountain State in real life, just holding the clipboard,
Yep.
getting paid. But I'm just glad that we don't have to talk about will he, won't he anymore. Like I said in our DMs, I just want one, and I'm not going to curse, 1 month of not talking about Nathan Rourke, and he needs to come back to the CFL. I am glad this is over.
The funny thing is going into today, this morning, before this was announced, I was like, I'm so over Nathan Rourke right now. Just hearing about it. Like, oh my God. Like, I get it. Justin Duncan, him are besties. He's going to put all the 3 Down Nation out there because he's getting tons of clicks on it. Of course he's going to do that, right? But I'm over it. I don't care anymore. Let him go try the NFL and then next year come back up. Okay, well, now it's a little bit different now that he's just come up here again. So I wish the guy success. It would be great for the CFL to have a Canadian quarterback be the star of the league. How great would that be? Like, we haven't had that since the 70s. So wonderful thing for the league. But I
just love the
small sample size. And he's going to start this week against against Winnipeg. I know he's familiar with Jordan Maximic's offense and everything, but to just come up and start, like,
I just love the idea that Trey Ford finally gets his start. He's anointed as the next Canadian quarterback. He's doing great. Nathan Rourke just comes in, hold my beer.
Yeah, move along,
hold my
kid.
Churchill.
But I mean, it's good for the league for Nathan Rourke to be back in. Everyone was talking about it, which is good. And for his sake, I hope he does well. I really do. Goes obviously a couple years off. I hope he individually does well.
I hope he does
the
well
BC
this
Lions
week against Winnipeg.
will lose, but
Like this week's a hard pick. It's either Winnipeg or BC, who's right behind us.
I have a theory on that. We'll get to that with our
Tie?
Piffles pick. No, because that might hurt us in the end. But whatever. Good that he's back. Hopefully, like you said, Greg, we can all just move on and stop talking about him because now I'm over him until we play BC again, right? But the Edmonton Elks sounds like they have their new owner in place. Going to be announced on Thursday. Be Larry Thompson, who's a construction business owner, local guy from Edmonton, longtime season ticket holder. So to have a fan guy who sold his business, made a lot of money doing that. I think he had like 1,500 employees is what I saw. Like he had a pretty solid company going.
The Thompson brothers or Thompson group or both at one point, I think. Like, massive company in the Northern Alberta area for construction. Yeah, like dude's got bank.
And if he's willing to invest it the same way Amar Doman has in BC, then that's a huge win for the league. So we'll probably get the official announcement. I think Dave Campbell of 630 Ched said that they're going to hold a conference on Thursday. Likely the expectation is to announce Larry Thompson as the owner. If he's willing to invest in the team and lose a little bit of money here to start anyway, if he can change it around and get people in Edmonton caring about the team again. And I mean, now that they've won 2 straight games. So we're talking a deep playoff run with Edmonton right now, even though they're still in 5th place. But the excitement's there for the team. So if he can string along some wins and have some stuff like Amar Doman's having in BC, then that's just great stuff for the league.
Dollars to donuts. I bet they also announced the 2026 Grey Cup in Edmonton. Just coincidentally.
There's already been rumors about that exact thing, and it makes sense. We saw it basically every time there's been an ownership change. That part of the deal was a Grey Cup to follow, and I'm all for it. 3 straight Grey Cups in the West. Sign me up.
Montreal hasn't got one yet. Maybe they should be 2026.
Well, I got to have a stadium first.
Fix the roof on the Big O. But
my great grandkids will be talking about when is our turn in Montreal.
So what we need is just another week of us in Montreal. But the rumor is from Edmonton that one of his top priorities with this is, and Greg is looking forward to talking about this, changing the name back, going from Elks back to the old Eskimos or Esks name.
Because if you hint at it, it's not racist.
Yeah. If I think it was Joel Gasson of 3 Down saying, if that's one of your top priorities, maybe the whole thing should have been just like, it's a bad idea from the start. So you would have to assume, talking with the league, that if you're wanting to change the name back, that would be a conversation you'd have, right? Like I assume it would be.
You would think that you'd think that would have came up at one point during it. Like I don't know. I said this on X. If I'm the league and this is an actual thing, you have to put a pin in that now.
Yeah.
Because yes, the Elks are losing money because the fans aren't there. It's because the team sucks. The team sucked. They're bad. They're poorly built, poorly coached. They lost 22 straight home games? Yeah, no wonder they can't get butts in the seats. It doesn't matter if they were called Eskimo, Elks, Empire, Elk Hounds, Elements, Eclipse, whatever other bad name they chose. Losing games drives fans away. Yes, were there some fans that were butthurt because they changed the names from the Eskimos? Of course there was.
Yep.
Fans are terrible. Don't like change. When the Riders had the focus groups about with the obsidian look, They sat on that thing for almost 3 years tweaking it until they thought they got it right, and they still weren't sure when they unveiled it. Because a bunch of people said you don't mess with that S. They messed with the S, and guess what? People liked it. Were there some vocal that hated it? Of course there are. Because some fans hate change. But at some point, you need to move forward. They move forward. And to take a step back, it's going to be worse for the overall brand than how many extra t-shirts you sell.
It's absolutely absurd to me at this point that we are still talking about the old name in Edmonton. They changed it. The only reason it has become an issue is because the team from day one as the Elks has been molten hot garbage. They cannot get out of their own way on and off the field, and it has nothing to do with the name change. Yet here we are in 2024 discussing going back to a name that was changed because the name was considered insensitive. And to have an owner even hint that that is a priority for him is a terrible look for the CFL.
Before he's even announced as the owner.
I'm really hoping that this is, because it was Dustin Nielsen, I believe, that put that out there. I'm really hoping that it was something that was told to him that is maybe not entirely factual. Because if this is legitimate and this is his top priority or one of his top priorities in Edmonton, that franchise is doomed. Fix the product on the field and the fans will come back. It doesn't matter if you name them the Edmonton Clowns. The fans will come back if the team is winning football games.
It'd be truthful.
Oh, I got a good logo if they change the name to the Edmonton Clowns. Just put a big W up there. Yeah, it's whatever.
But if this is how he's starting his tenure off in the CFL, I don't like the odds of him becoming the next Damar Doman or I just it doesn't scream positive change to me. But I'm sure there's a few rednecks out there that are just super thrilled about this.
100% it's coming up in that opening press conference.
Of course it is.
He's going to be asked that question. And he's going to have to either answer it yes or be very political on how he says no. And I'm pretty sure he's going to leave the door wide open for a name change.
Yep. He'll look at absolutely everything to on and off the field to have success for the Edmonton Football Club or for football in Edmonton. That's exactly what he'll say. He'll look at absolutely everything and talk to people he trusts and talk to people in the know and all that kind of stuff. That's what's going to happen.
The good news is if he leaves it to the season ticket holders, it's a small sample size.
Sadly. Hopefully they get back, though. We all want all 9 teams to flourish. Although we don't really want Edmonton to win any games. We want the fans to be there, right? So hopefully it's a good, healthy move for the league. So if he's going to pump in a lot of money, do some good things, then cool. But anyway, back to the Riders. That's why we're here, to talk Rider football. Game on Friday, 7 p.m., Riders Alouettes. As Jamie and I said, if you're looking for a Trevor Harris, Cody Fajardo matchup, you're going to have to wait till Grey Cup. You will get one of them. Trevor Harris back for the Riders, practicing with the ones. 6 games are up, and he's back. So healthy bodies coming back between him and AJ Ouellette, making a big difference on the offense. Not that their replacements were bad by any means, but to have that leadership and energy back on the field. We talked about that a couple weeks ago, was losing the leadership of Harris, losing the energy of AJ Ouellette. You bring that back on, and the offense was really starting to get rolling just as Trevor Harris got hurt. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he can kind of pick up where he left off and putting up a boatload of points. And it's going to be a tough one. I don't think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this one. The Alouettes defense is unreal right now. But that makes me happy to have that veteran quarterback with the quick release who can attack a Noel Thorpe defense and not have the Noel Thorpe defense attack you. So I am looking forward to seeing what kind of game plan that Trevor Harris, Mark Mueller, etc. have in play for this one.
Oh, one of the big differences is you're going to see that quick decision, ball out in like 2 seconds, which is going to completely change the way this offense looks, especially against a Noel Thorpe defense. You can't let them set up. You can't keep them. You have to put them on their heels, essentially. And Trevor Harris is going to do that more so than Shea Patterson did.
The biggest thing that I had, or the biggest concern I had with Shea Patterson going into a game against Montreal, if you watch the first quarter of every game he started, he had a propensity for finding a member of the opposition and somehow lucking out with the ball being dropped. Because he had probably 5, 6, maybe more passes in the first quarters of football games that should have been picked off that weren't. And this is not the defense you want to be throwing up, project balls to. This is a ball hawk defense with especially with Beverett back there, who's good for at least one pick a game.
Oh, Duquois.
And Duquois,
yeah.
Sankey's known to get one. Yeah.
Yep.
He's had hell.
So having a guy like Trevor Harris back is that could not be understated for our potential success.
So tons of changes for the Riders. So obviously Trevor Harris is the big one. AJ Ouellette coming back, which we might actually have Ouellette and Frankie Hickson both on the roster, which I'm hoping. We've been clamoring for that since almost day one. And hopefully we can get them both on the field at the same time, just give some different looks and just create just that little bit of doubt of where the ball is going to go. And that's all you need in football is just that little bit, right? So if we can get something like that going, plus the nice thing against the Montreal defense, even though they're a very, very good defense, probably the best one in the league, their run defense isn't that great. I think they're second last in rush defense. So if there's anything that we can exploit, well, getting your starting running back, that sure helps.
Give me some power eye with Ouellette as the fullback and Hickson behind him. I want to see that.
I think everybody in Rider Nation wants to see that.
Old school power eye. Like, let's throw it all the way back.
And then have some wrinkles in that too, and have Ouellette take a toss where you think it's going to be a run and have him do a little counter step and go to the outside, throw a little toss. Like, let's see something here, Mark. Like Mark Mueller. Let's see some creativity here.
Especially with Harris coming back fresh off yet another long-term injury. It's nothing but good things if you can get the running game going and getting AJ Ouellette, Frankie Hickson, all that short passing going. That is what you need to do to get him kind of back up to game speed after 2 months off.
Greg, get your stupid little bell ready. Because more changes on the offense. The O-line, we're going to see another new right tackle, our 5th of the year. Logan Ferland, who has been exceptional, at right tackle. Every time he's gone in to play tackle in his career, he's been excellent at it. Him and Nick Jones, our starting right tackle from last year, are swapping spots. So Logan Ferland kicks out to tackle. Nick Jones moves inside to guard. I'm not upset at that by any means. I'm intrigued to see what Ferland can do with a full game at tackle. And if Nick Jones is stronger as a guard, then even better.
Ferland was a tackle for the Thunder. Like, that's his natural position. Can he play guard? Yes, of course he can. He's also been our backup center. Like, he can play any position on that line, but naturally he's a tackle. And he's big enough to play in this league. Typically with the Canadian guards, they're smaller. Logan Ferland ain't that. So I think this is going to be a good spot for him, even against those big American Russians.
You said it. Every time he stepped out there with injuries in game, he's looked fantastic. We called for this as a possibility in preseason, that maybe we went with that 4 or 5 Canadians and had, or I guess 4 with Hardrick, but had Logan Ferland step to the outside. I'm actually I'm thrilled about it. There's no other word for it. I think this is exactly where he belongs, and it's good news.
When's the last time we had an American guard?
Ooh. Derek Dennis.
Yeah, they put him out to tackle though, and it didn't go well. There's a reason why he's not here anymore.
Well,
Or he
and
wasn't here.
they put him in guard because he wasn't any good at tackle. What Furland reminds me of right now with his versatility, and I'm talking just versatility, being able to play tackle and of course excel at guard and be able to play center if he needs to. A modern day Gene Mikowski.
Mhm.
Gino played a lot of tackle as well too. Didn't really like it, but anytime he went out there was very, very solid. And I mean, Gino, Hall of Fame career in as a guard, right? So I'm seeing a lot of that with Logan Furland and just being able to do everything and do it all very well. Yeah, we'd like to have him, stay at one spot and be that absolute rock in the one spot and never have to worry about that. But if you can move that rock over one spot and shore up something else, then that's a good thing.
He's an offensive line Swiss Army knife. You can put him wherever you want, and he's going to excel. And that is why I've been a very big champion of him all from his time at the Thunder, because I've seen it. I knew he was going to do well at this level, not just because of how well he plays, but his attitude. And he's just a good human being who's very good at football, just a small town farm kid who puts in the work. And it's good to see him excel. And he's going to be, once again, our nominee for most outstanding lineman because he's that damn good. And one of these years, he's going to win it for this team.
Absolutely. More changes in offense. Mitch Picton going to be starting over Joe, who is listed with a finger or hand injury, which probably happened on that interception. Looked like he got the ball jammed on his fingers there. But also, Joe's he's still pretty raw. His ceiling is much higher than Picton's. But I think they just, especially with going back to Trevor Harris, having that more, I don't want to say more reliable, I guess, guy with Mitch Picton might suit the offense a little bit better with Trevor Harris, at least in his first game back.
There's more built-in chemistry with Picton.
Yeah.
Joe reminds me of that kind of like Labradoodle puppy who's a little too big for its own body, just excited ball of energy. He's just a giant ball of energy, and all he wants to do is like play and make you happy. But he's going to make mistakes. He's going to knock a vase off. He's going to but you're going to love him anyway, and that's a Joe. He is so fun, and he loves his team. You can tell every time he talks, he just is happy to be here. And it's his rookie year. He was a 7th round draft pick. He is going to be fine.
Our 2006 first round draft pick started out his career not doing so hot. Had some drops, got benched. 2007, he ended up being unreal and had the big touchdown in the Grey Cup, and that was Andy Fantuz. And that was a first rounder. Like you said, a Joe is a 7th rounder. There's going to be some growing pains with him. If this is also due in part to, putting him on the bench just for some drops lately or whatever else, it's a learning experience, and he's going to get better from it. I'm not worried about, and it's not like he's going to be, if he is actually on the roster this week, and not out with injury, he's still going to have a role on the team. It's not like he's going to be glued to the bench the entire time and just in the doghouse. He's going to have a role. He's going to have that rotation. He's going to come in and do some blocking. So I'm not worried about what they're doing with a Joe.
If you would have told me at the start of the season that our 7th round draft pick would have 250 yards, a couple of touchdowns, be a stellar blocker, and a legitimate piece in this offense, I would have called you a moron. That's just not something you see. 7th round guys don't even make the team, let alone become a legitimate piece in year one. So the fact that we're getting this much production out of him to start with, even if this is a benching, is still fantastic. You're gonna see him make mistakes, and he has had a couple of bad drops, but then he makes a catch like he did against Edmonton that was actually a catch. Thanks, Command Center. But he is that legitimate guy. but you got to learn to live with the growing pains. And if it means riding the pine for a game while he watches a very reliable but unexciting Mitch Picton, step into his place, you live with it.
You also have to remember, Joe's best performances have been in relief of the guy he was behind this year.
Yeah, that's true.
He's done better on a secondary role than he has been as the starter. So yes, Mitch Picton is boring as oatmeal, but the man's going to make a catch when you throw it to him.
He just might be out of bounds when he does it.
Okay, he made that giant mistake, yes.
Keyshawn Johnson and Dante Myers both starting from the looks of it. Jareth Stearns looks like he's going to be riding the bench in this one. I think we can all agree on that one with how Johnson and Myers have both performed over the last couple of weeks. And with Stearns, I mean, it's interesting with Stearns and Trevor Harris because he was great with Harris and absolutely nowhere to be found with Shea Patterson. So be interesting to see if they can bring him back with Harris in the next couple of weeks anyway.
I want to say it was a couple games ago, Stearns had no targets.
Yeah.
Like I legit thought he was out of the game until I went back to the roster. I'm like, no, he was there. He just didn't even get a target.
Couple drops against Ottawa. That big one on the 1 yard line where we would have gotten out of the one or gotten away from the 1 yard line up to about the 30. I know the ball was wet. It was raining, but still a catch you should have had. So Corey Mace is holding him accountable.
I'm excited to see Keyshawn Johnson and Dante Myers on the same field at the same time. They've both looked They have both looked so good to start the season. Right. Just getting them both out there alongside Sean Bain Jr.
Wow. On the flip side, on defense, Jameer Thurman's back, so his 6-game injury list only lasted 1 week. Great to have him back because he's been outside of Roland Milligan. He's been the defense's best player. And that might be across the CFL as well, too. But CJ Avery likely out for this one. And we talked about Baldonado on the D line out with a concussion because that's clearly what happened there. So, yeah, right. So more hits to the D line just with Baldonado being out. So
which sucks is Baldonado's actually been balling out the last couple of games. He's been for as much as everyone makes fun of global players, he's been playing very well.
The opening kickoff on the second half against Ottawa, where he trucked 2 guys into, was it Dedman that was returning that one, or Pimpleton, whoever the returner was for Ottawa at the time. He trucked 2 guys into him. He didn't even touch the kick returner and tackled him. And actually, who was it? Caleb Sanders did the same thing with
on defense,
the center or whatever, and just bullied the center into
what a bull rush in Brown,
yeah, and forced an incompletion on that too. So, so they'll miss Baldonado, but we'll see what they can do there. And of course, it's not going to be Cody Fajardo. Says that next week, likely against Edmonton, is going to be his return. So it'll be Davis Alexander, who missed a Tuesday due to a personal day. But Davis Alexander, now we have film on him. So hopefully we won't see the same repeat that we saw when we saw Davis Alexander make his debut there a couple weeks ago. So a full week of preparation on him is going to be good for this defense.
Why did Montreal take Cody Fajardo off the 6-game list just to sit him for 4 more games?
So you can practice him, I guess.
Danny Machoch is a genius. I'm telling you that right now.
Like if I'm Montreal, if he's sitting on the 6th game, they're 8-1. They're walking to first in the East. That extra money would have really come in handy to maybe entice Austin Mack to sign a long-term deal when he comes back. Yes, he's an Alouette regardless, but you got a couple extra $100,000 sitting there. Maybe makes him think twice about checking down south a little more. What a weird decision, but
Montreal will be
Cody Fajardo is just afraid of the Riders. It's just
clearly. Yeah,
I was going to say that, but I didn't want to put that in the universe. But thanks, Steve.
Gladly. Clearly, what I say never goes right, as we'll find out in the pick'em in just a minute. So
Yeah, we got to get to that right away. One more thing for the Alouettes receivers, Charleston Rambo is proven he's the real deal. I hated Kenyon Rambo, so guys with the last name Rambo, I'm afraid of them just absolutely destroying the Riders. Had a hell of a game last week for Montreal, but they'll be without Tyson Philpott. He was in a walking boot and crutches last week, so big loss for them with their obviously the top receiver in the league going down. So
It definitely slows them down a little bit, but they still have a very solid set of receivers there.
yeah. All right. Well, if you have the little graphic, I'll give you a little bit of time, Greg, to get ready for it. Let's get to our Piffles picks.
Piffles picks.
Well, folks, when you're right 52% of the time, you're wrong 48% of the time.
I was ready.
I wish I was wrong
I'm
48% of the time.
I was ready because I'm this close to that 52%.
We both are. Yeah, we're both at 500 at 50%, 20 and 20 on the year against the spread. And Steve,
I'm right there behind you, right behind you, nipping on your heels.
Understand
Third by default. Third by default.
I don't
Bronze
understand.
medal.
So bad.
In fairness, last week I used it for good, and I will
For the greater
continue to
good.
do so. Yeah,
So 2 straight weeks of going 0-4.
I've got
You
one
are
right in the last 3
you are the
weeks.
Australian breakdancer of CFL picks. You are Ray Gun.
12 and 28 on the season against the spread, Steve. Just brutal.
I'm barely averaging one right per week. How is that even possible in a 50-50 situation?
I don't know. Anyway, maybe you're doing it like I was earlier with picking Winnipeg all the time for the greater good. Because if you can do that to help the Riders out, then let's keep going. So here comes the point of the show where we give you our awful betting advice, especially Steve, and you go against that grain and make yourself some real money.
Hey, we're just as good as a coin flip. You and me are just as good as a coin flip.
That's true.
So am I. A 4-sided coin.
So first game this week, Ottawa at Calgary, and it's Jeremiah Mazzoli getting his getting the start for Ottawa because they don't trust Dustin Crum.
I don't blame him.
Yeah, neither do I. The guy, he can run, not a good passer. I want Jeremiah Mazzoli to succeed, but just with his injuries, I just don't have the faith in him anymore. I'm going to guess because Calgary's at home and they're undefeated at home and can't win on the road. I'm going to say it's Calgary by a slim 1.5.
I was going to say 2. So. All right, there we go.
All right, what do you guys got?
Calgary wins this in a rout. Calgary wins.
I feel better.
Rout.
I feel better about my decision then because I'm saying Ottawa's winning.
I would like Ottawa to win. I'm actually going to go with Calgary to win that. Just home Jake Mayer, something about him. He finds a way to win.
Congratulations, Greg, on taking the lead in Piffles picks.
We still got 3 more games.
Montreal at Saskatchewan. Obviously, I'm going to guess Montreal is favored. I'm going to say by 3.5.
I'm going to say 4.5.
2.5. She's a field goal game.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I think the Riders win straight up. I really do.
So do I, because I'm King Homer apparently now.
Montreal is going to win by double digits.
For the greater good.
Greater good.
Edmonton, the hottest team in the league with 2 wins. Don't even know if it's going to be Trey Ford. It might be McLeod Bethel-Thompson, depending on how injured Ford is, but it'll probably be Ford.
We do
Edmonton
know it's not going to be Bo Levi Mitchell for Hamilton, though.
No, it's Taylor Powell time in Hamilton. As I wouldn't have benched Bo Levi Mitchell that quickly. Yeah, there was the time count penalty. The interception was a bad throw against the body into triple coverage. That was an awful throw. But the fumble on the first play of the game, was not on him, and to have your starting quarterback only allowed to have 4 passes before you pull him, like that's an extremely short leash, especially for a Hall of Fame guy that Bo Levi Mitchell, like that guy who was leading the league in passing and touchdowns as well, or second in touchdowns, whatever he was. To have that short of a leash is just weird to me.
It's
I get
obvious
it.
Milanovich's relationship is sour to the point of no return.
Oh yeah.
So Milanovic is going to do what Milanovic is going to do. It's safe to say Bo Levi Mitchell's not in Hamilton next year. Maybe
Probably
not.
not.
I'd say it's safe to say Bo Levi Mitchell is not in the CFL next year.
Well, it might be in the CFL.
He's got a spot on the panel.
Him, Mwamba, and Stiegel. Get rid of Barker and Sanchez.
I don't hate Sanchez as much as you do, but I hate Barker.
Sanchez has actually been better the last couple of weeks.
But yeah, get rid of Barker. Do anything you can to get rid of Barker.
The epitome of old man yells at clouds.
This show. Edmonton at Hamilton. Steve, I'll let you go ahead and you guess first here.
I'm gonna we're gonna keep my numbers going and go for Hamilton.
Well, but what do you think the spread is?
Yeah. Spread will be, I think it's 2.5 in Edmonton's favor.
Didn't hear dings, so I'm gonna go with what'd you say, 2.5? 3.5 for Edmonton.
1.5 for Edmonton.
I was gonna go that way
Sorry,
too.
you didn't hear a ding. What part of Steve and Piffles' picks would make you expect to hear a ding with anything I have to say right now?
Yeah, this is what you should expect to hear.
A long time.
That's my picks in a nutshell.
So Edmonton by 1.5. I'm going with Edmonton on that one.
I'm going to take Hamilton.
I'm taking.
They have to win eventually.
MBT did look not bad for the first time this season after Trey Ford went out. So I think if he's behind center, especially against Hamilton, I think they could easily win by 1.5.
And the final game of the week, Winnipeg at BC with
this was easy money.
With Nathan
this is gonna be
Rourke
easy money. Oh my god!
Starting, like theoretically, with Nathan Rourke starting, it should be BC by a bunch, but Winnipeg just kicked their asses last week. I'm gonna guess it's like, for some reason, I'm gonna take Winnipeg by 2.5. Is my guess.
This was opening, right? Before Rourke signed. Yep. This was I'm gonna go Winnipeg by 4.5.
Right between you two, 3.5. Line has moved. BC is now favored by 1.5 in some spots, 1 in others.
Either way, I'm taking Winnipeg.
You're taking Winnipeg
by 4 points. Sure. Yep. The way that defense played. Their defense has allowed 1 touchdown in the last 3 games. Their defense is playing very, very well right now. The only thing that Winnipeg has going for them on offense is Sergio Castillo. So if they can get to the 50-yard line, they're probably going to kick a field goal. But
can we talk about that for 1 second? If it wasn't for Sergio Castillo and his leg, Winnipeg would be in a lot of trouble. Everyone's going on about how Sergio is, oh my God, he's record setting. He's never seen so many 60-yard field goals in a season. Yeah, because Winnipeg's offense sucks. If it was any other kicker, they'd be losing.
They're getting Kenny Lawler back, so I know that's gonna be good for them.
Nothing about Winnipeg is threatening right now. I'm sorry. I gotta take BC in this one. Wait, no, sorry. I'm backing up. Greater good. Winnipeg by a touchdown.
I'm getting really quick on the greater good button. I want to separate myself from you two but you kind of talked me into Winnipeg. Nope, taking BC. Nathan Rourke's going to come back. He's going to lead a parade. They're giving him a ton of money. He's sleeping on it with many beautiful ladies.
Or one.
And that's how he sleeps at night.
There's your Simpsons reference for the night.
We got the default one with the Piffles picks now. So
yeah, I guess so. That said, Winnipeg, BC, you're a Rider fan. Who do you want to win this one? Who do you actually want to win?
BC, no question.
How come?
Any way you can keep Winnipeg farther down the standings is good. Because if Calgary loses and Winnipeg wins, Winnipeg will be in a playoff spot. No part of us wants that. We want them to suffer for the remainder of the year. I want them to be outside the playoffs looking in come week 12, week 13, not on their way in as they get healthy. So no, give me BC any day of the week on this one.
I like her spot in first right now. I see Steve's point. I don't know.
You kind of lean Winnipeg just to, and if the Riders win, that's another full game up on BC, so it's a game and a half, right? So
yeah, exactly. Can I cheer for Stadium Fire
in BC? No, well, Fred Penner's there. No.
Oh yeah, it's Fred Penner night. Oh yeah, no wonder Rourke come back. He wasn't going to miss Fred Penner night.
To me, I gotta agree with Steve on this one. If you can bury a team, the earlier you can do that, the better. BC's, to me, they're going to make the playoffs anyway. It's just a matter of where they finish. Same with us. But if you can, because I still think Winnipeg is going to start winning some games here and there. They'll start to figure it out. The way that their defense is playing, they'll win a few, right? But if you can keep them losing, and if Edmonton wins, all of a sudden Edmonton's tied with Winnipeg for fourth place, potentially only a game back of Calgary if Ottawa beats Calgary. So, but if you can bury a team now, that's what I want to see, especially if it's Winnipeg. So that's what I'd want to see.
It is so wild looking at the standings. You've got Montreal at 8-1, and then a bunch of 5-win teams, like 3 5-win teams, a 4-win team, a 3-win team, and 2 2-win teams.
Yeah,
like,
there's 3 tiers. There's Montreal by themselves. There's kind of that 5-win team, right in that good to like average to good, and then there's just junk underneath. Although one of the junks is starting to move up here with Edmonton, so.
Which cracks me up why people get so bent out of shape about power rankings is this year it's obviously Montreal, it's Hamilton and Edmonton, who's actually one of them's on the rise, and then it's like just shaking an ant's nest.
It doesn't matter
because it doesn't matter.
Plus, it's like it's an extension of the standings. Generally speaking, is what power rankings are. And people get so upset when their team isn't in a certain spot. They mean nothing. We put them out every week because I know people like seeing them. They mean nothing. They mean nothing.
My word is my bond, and what I say, I mean. And when I say that Winnipeg can lose a spot and break the rules, I stand by it because it happens. Steve.
Yeah, you guys are a bunch of goddamn hypocrites.
You know what? When it comes
all
to
over my mentions, yelling at me because I dropped the Riders after we lose QB1 and go into a bye week. But no, you guys can drop Winnipeg because Edmonton suddenly wins a couple of football games.
Yep,
I agree with you.
And here's why.
And you're
Steve.
right, but you're hypocrites.
Here's why, Steve. Because Winnipeg can suck it. That's it.
And with that, I think the point goes to Alex, and we're out of here.
And that's going to be it. So we'll leave it there. We'll talk Riders Alouettes next week. And then Steve and I are off to Toronto to see Chad Kelly's debut against the Riders. Season debut.
So I can't wait to boo. So hard.
How quickly do you think they take away our no means no sign?
I can't wait for that curse-filled post game too.
Oh, that'll be fun. Us at the CNE, we'll be on like the Ferris wheel or something.
Yep.
Doing a live video. That'll be fun. But that's next week. So we'll talk about
post
that
game in sports.
Fastest growing too.
Fastest growing one. Yeah. And we'll leave it there. Piffles Podcast, of course, brought to you by our great friends at Dairy Queen on Elphinstone Street and Sass Drive in Regina. Special thanks, of course, go out to Kathy Festian of Royal LePage Regina Realty and Churchill Brewing Company for their support making the show possible. We'll see you at the game on Friday night. Thanks for watching on SaskTel Max on YouTube and downloading wherever you get your podcasts. This is Tyler Gilbert with Ghost Behind Your Mind.